In this presentation, we're going to talk about the meaning and use of wedge. No, not the pilot from the Star Wars movies. I mean the logical connective, the wedge. So, the wedge. The wedge represents the truth function. At least one of these sentences is true, possibly both. The most common way to express this is with the word or. Sometimes people use either or. Here's an example. John brought hummus or Mary brought falafel. Translation, dictionary, J. John brought hummus, M. Mary brought falafel. Translation, J. Wedge, M. Remember, this is a connective. A connective expresses a truth function. And the truth function is a matter of which possible combinations of truth and falsity it leaves open and which ones it eliminates. So in this case, the wedge eliminates the possibility that J is false and M is false, and it leaves everything else open. Right? That's what the wedge is doing. It's saying at least one is true, possibly both. So J is true and M is true. That would be both. That's possible. J is true and M is false. One but not the other. That's possible. J is false and M is true. One but not the other again. Just flipped around. That's possible. J is false and M is false. No, that's impossible. At least one of them has to be true. Let's look at another. Either Sanjay will come to the party or Helen will come to the party. Dictionary, S. Sanjay will come to the party. H. Helen will come to the party. Translation, S. Wedge, H. Again, it's eliminating the possibility that S is false and H is false and leaving open all the other possibilities. That's what the wedge does. Here's another. Either his mother or his father will pick him up from school. Now this time we're using the either or, and you'll notice we didn't spell out the complete sentences. It just said either his mother or his father, but it's pretty clear what this means. M, his mother will pick him up from school. Q, his father will pick him up from school. Translation, M, wedge, Q. At this point, we run into a difficulty. A lot of people get misled by a complication with the English word or. Sometimes this word means one or the other, but not both. Sometimes this word means one or the other, possibly both. We call these the exclusive or and the inclusive or. Let's start by looking at the inclusive or. No matter what happens, your aunt or your uncle will come to the school play. Now, most of the time, this is going to be the inclusive or, right? So if your aunt and uncle come to the play, you would be especially happy, but you wouldn't be shocked. You wouldn't say, hey, you said my aunt or uncle would come to the school play, right? Your parents would say, well, yeah, what we meant was one or the other, possibly both. Or here's a more definite one. If you eat fish or chicken, you will get protein. Right? Now that's true, but notice what this means. It means if you eat fish, you'll get chicken. If you eat fish, you'll get protein. If you eat chicken, you'll get protein. If you eat both, you'll get protein, right? It doesn't mean that if you eat both of them, somehow they'll react with each other and cancel out the protein, right? What this is saying if you eat one, the other, or possibly both, then you'll get protein. Or if the famous chef or the household hints author shows up, then we can find out why the ice cream did not freeze. I want to know why my ice cream didn't freeze this week, and no one can tell me. Right? Now, this does not mean if they both show up, then they'll get angry and refuse to talk. Right? What this is saying is if one of them shows up, or the other shows up, or both shows up, then we can find out why the ice cream did not freeze. So those are all cases where we're pretty clearly using the inclusive or. We're using or to mean one, the other, or possibly both. Sometimes, though, we use or to mean the exclusive or. That is, we mean it to say one or the other, but not both. The case where we see this most clearly is with ultimatums, when a person says, do this or else. When they do that, what they mean to emphasize is, it's not going to be both of these things. It's going to be one or the other and definitely not both. For example, in movies, you sometimes see a scene where someone holds a gun to someone's head and says, your money or your life. which expanded would be you keep your money or you keep your life. Conversely, you lose your money or you lose your life. When the person says that, what they're saying is, look, here's two options. You keep your money and you get killed, or you hand over your money and you live. It's definitely not going to be both. It's definitely not going to be you keep your money and you live. Right? And it's also implying it's not going to be neither. It's not going to be, the person's implying that he's not going to shoot you when you hand over your money. It's pretty much the same thing with you can start following the new job description tomorrow or leave the company today. When the boss says that, he's emphasizing this. There's two possibilities. You start following the new job description, so the first part's true, and you keep the job. Right? You don't have to leave the company today. The second part's false. Or you don't follow the new job description starting tomorrow. Right? So the first part is false, and you have to leave the company today. So what he's saying is, look, there's no way both things are going to be true. Right? You don't start following the new job description, and you don't leave the company. Right? But it's also, you note, impossible to do both. There's no way that you could start following the new job description tomorrow and leave the company today. Obviously, if you've left the company, you can't start following the new job description. So you notice what ultimatums do. Ultimatums use exclusive or in order to emphasize one of its features. They use it in order to say one or the other, not both, with a heavy emphasis on not both. This brings us back to the wedge. The wedge always uses the inclusive or. If you want to express the truth function for the exclusive or, you have to do something complicated. Right? Or we could add another symbol to the system, but we don't want to add another symbol to the system. So if you want to express the exclusive or, you've got to do something complicated. The wedge always means the inclusive or. It always means one or the other, possibly both. Now this brings us to a question. Why not use the wedge to mean the exclusive or? Especially since some people find that the more natural reading. Well, the answer is that I've got several theories. I would say first off that we definitely use or in both senses in everyday language. I have several theories as to why we use the inclusive or instead of the exclusive or. We'll actually talk about one of them in the last week. If you're interested, contact me, but I'm going to leave that aside for now. The bottom line is this. Anytime you want to say that one of two statements is true, possibly both, you use the wedge.